Senator, welcome back to Pod Save America.
Good to be with you.
We were just talking about this. We're in Warren, Michigan. It is not an election year. There are 10,000 people here.
I'll tell you, I have, needless to say, I've done a lot of rallies. And we've done rallies during the presidential campaign that were larger than this for sure. But the idea that in a non-campaign, coming here to Warren, Michigan, that you have 10,000 people is totally insane. And what it tells me, and we had tremendous turnouts in Kenosha. We had wonderful turnouts in a small community in Altoona, Wisconsin. And what it tells me is the American people are up in arms now. They are not going to let Trump and his friends turn this country into an oligarchy. They're not going to let him turn us into an authoritarian society. And they're not going to allow him to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut the programs that working class people need.
You said something yesterday in Wisconsin. You said we're no longer moving toward an oligarchy. We are living in one.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't heard you say before.
Well, look, I think the evidence is pretty clear. When you have a president get inaugurated and standing behind him, sitting behind him, were the three wealthiest people in the country, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg, and then sitting scattered throughout the stage, 13 other billionaires who Trump nominated to head major agencies, Secretary of Treasury, etc. You tell me what you would call it. This is, I find it hard not to describe it as a government of the billionaires, and that is what oligarchy is about.
There's this, you made this video after, I think 2 weeks into Trump's term, and it was really meaningful for me just personally because I found it very helpful to think about how to fight back. You talked about needing to define what's happening, needing to fight back in the short term, and then needing to build a progressive movement and agenda in the long term. But there was also there was a gravity in your voice, and a sense that, in a way that I maybe hadn't heard before. I don't know if you agree with that.
These are, the scariest times in my lifetime. That's all. I mean, I think that's objectively the truth. It is not just they want to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs for working people. Frankly, that's happened before.
Yeah.
But you combine that with the power of the oligarchy in general. You combine that with Mr. Musk owning Twitter and able to send out his messages to hundreds of millions of people. You combine that with the fact that people like Bezos, the second wealthiest person in the country, fired or got rid of most of his editorial staff and is going to convert them into a right-wing thing. Combine that with the fact that Trump is suing major media outlets and is threatening to investigate PBS and NPR. So it's not only the power of money, it's also combined with that, the movement toward authoritarianism. When Trump unilaterally cuts federal funding that was passed by Congress, that is illegal, that is unconstitutional. When you have the vice president saying, well, in his judgment, the courts don't have the right to stop unconstitutional acts of the president, man, that is authoritarianism. That's what the courts are. He is now trying to end what the founding fathers were pretty smart about, creating a form of government where there were checks and balances, a legislative body, an executive body, and a judiciary. So he is moving aggressively in all of these areas. Yeah, there was gravity in my voice. This is a scary moment.
There's this strange contradiction in fighting back. Because on the one hand, you have the kind of brazenness of what Trump is doing, as if he won't ever have to worry about democratic legitimacy at all. That they're not worried about being held accountable, or they're not worried about people paying attention, they're not worried about what could happen. But then we're here in a district that a Republican won by a few points, right? These people still care about their jobs, right? This is a place where normal politics just seems still be possible to practice. And I'm just curious how you think about that on the one hand, we're facing this unprecedented brazen power grab by the richest human beings in the history of planet Earth. And on the other, we got to knock on doors and turn people out to win by a few hundred, maybe 1,000 votes in a district like this.
Well, I think, and this is what I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but it is what I have always believed. And I am a politician, And when people stand up and talk, when your phone line bangs off the hook, when you see rallies, if I'm the congressman from this district and I see 9,000 people coming out who really do not want tax breaks for billionaires and cuts in Medicaid, you know what? I'm going to think twice about it. So I think what Trump and Musk hope is they can create a sense of powerlessness in people. Hey, what do you think? I got all the money. I got all the power. I own the media. I can buy elections. What do you think you can do? You can't stop me. And if people believe that, we're going to lose. But if people understand that when they stand up and fight back, and that's why at the end of these remarks, I talked about the history of this country. This is not the first time. I think back, slightly different thing, in December of 1941, the United States was attacked at Pearl Harbor. You know what? We had to fight a war on two fronts completely. The military was not prepared to do that. Yet in 2 years, the country came together. We were able to, lay the groundwork for victory. We can do it. We can do it when people are mobilized and are prepared to stand up and fight back.
So let's talk about what does success to you look like in the short term?
In the short term, it means a solid defeat of this outrageous reconciliation bill, which would provide $1.1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and massive cuts to Medicaid, nutrition, and education programs. That's the immediate. We win that, we got them on the defensive. And that's why I'm here in this district and why I was in Kenosha and Altoona earlier.
What does that argue for doing in even before we get to that reconciliation vote? Because right now they're trying to jam through this continuing resolution just to keep the government open, to give them time to negotiate with each other to figure out their tax cuts and Medicaid cuts.
Well, I'll be back in Washington on Monday, and we'll be delving into that. But there's a lot of stuff that's flying on, so I can't give you a good answer on that one.
I remember when the Bush tax cuts were on the table, and they talked about starving the beast. I'm sure you remember. But the reason they said that is they were kind of attenuating the connection between massive tax cuts for the richest people and inevitably what they would try to do next, which was privatizing Social Security, cutting healthcare. They understood that there was like a political risk in doing that. Can you remember a time when you have had, at the exact same moment, an active proposal to cut $1 trillion worth of taxes for the richest people, to give people making over $1 million an average of $70,000 just in cash money, while also firing 80,000 people from the Veterans Affairs?
No, this is unprecedented. And it's why this is a scary moment. Look, Musk is many things, but he is extraordinarily arrogant and extraordinarily aggressive. And they're going for it. They're going for it. I mean, it's just hard to keep up with what they are doing. They're moving. And that's not an accident as well. But I tell you, I think that when you propose to cut, 83,000 positions at the Veterans Administration, the American people are going to say, you're not going to do that. Because no matter what your politics may be, there is respect for people who put their lives on the line to defend our country. And I've been talking to veterans all over this country. And you know what? I don't think they're going to get away with that. I think the veterans community is going to stand up. I think you have seniors all over this country saying, no, I can't get a phone call now because the Social Security Administration is understaffed. Some 30,000 people a year die who have disabilities because they don't get their benefits on time. This will only make it much worse.
So there was a report out of the Times about basically a fight in the cabinet room or in a cabinet meeting between Musk and Rubio and Duffy and Trump and all these characters because they're feeling the political consequences of the attention on long hold times for people just trying to find out what happened to their Social Security checks or veterans being laid off. 25% of the people that work at VA are veterans. So they are firing veterans who take care of veterans. I can't think of a less popular decision. What is there any hope in the pressure that's taking place inside of the Trump administration? I know we want to beat these people, but in the meantime, we gotta figure out anything we can do to stop these decisions.
No, I think not. I mean, I think the answer is going to be exactly what we're doing here today. And that is rally thousands of people all over this country. Our next trip we expect will probably be heading west, maybe to Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, whatever. And just put pressure on these members of Congress. Now, in fairness to them, because of the corrupt campaign finance system, if some Republican today stands up and says, you know what, I am not going to cut Medicaid in my district to give tax breaks to billionaires. You know what happens? The next day, Musk says, guess what? fella. We're going to primary you. I got endless amounts of money. You're in trouble. These guys are scared to death. They're scared to death of Musk. But we're going to have to force them to make a choice. They can be scared to death of Musk, or they can be scared to death of their own constituents. That's the choice we're going to give them.
So, look, I don't know if you have any interest in talking about what Democrats are doing wrong, if you cared about their outfits at the State of the Union, but we can skip it if you want.
Yeah, look, Democrats will. And you want to talk about Democrats? I'll give you Chuck Schumer's number, Hakeem Jeffries. You can talk to them. I'm here doing. As you know, I'm an independent. I'm proudly longest-standing independent in American congressional history. I'm doing what I do. Democrats will do what they do, and that's that.
So we talked to a bunch of people on the line that were excited to be here, and one thing we heard was just people saying how much they believe in you. They're here because they want to do what you think is best, and they view you as like a moral leader of the movement. But they also are feeling worried and nervous that you're a little bit out here alone. And you said that you may not seek re-election.
You make that definitive.
I said I didn't make it
definitive. I am 38 years of age now. I am getting old,
I'm not. Listen, I think there's
40, man. I don't know.
There's a lot of ways to be 89. There's a lot of different versions of 89. You're Sprite. With Rolling Stones, they're still touring. But do you think about it? Do you think about a successor?
No, I don't want to. Look, all I will tell you is that one of the untold stories is that when I was in the House, I helped form the Progressive Caucus. You may know that. Mm-hmm. And we had about 5 people at the time. Grew a little bit. Today, they're somewhere around 100. And there are fantastic people. Many of them, dozens of them. Young people, many of them are women, people of color, great people. So, that is one of the success stories that the progressive movement has had. We've elected people the likes of which when I was in the House, 18 years ago, they didn't exist. So we're making some real progress. We've got to do a lot more.
Here's my last question for you. You want to talk about the future? Would you ever take an edible with me and sit down and just have a conversation about the future? Just get really stoned on marijuana, really brainstorm?
No, but I'm happy to talk to you. I don't need to do marijuana to talk. Okay.
What happened? What happened to the radical? What happened to the Bernie of the 60s? Let's get stoned.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, that's not who I am, as a matter of fact. I've done marijuana twice in my life.
Twice?
Yeah, didn't quite agree with me.
Do you want to end daylight savings time?
No, doesn't matter. Okay, thank you very much.